You know, I told you people something a long time ago, and it's just as pertinent today as it was then. Ladies and gentlemen, take my advice. Pull down your pants and slide on the ice.
Welcome back to WD MagicCast for week of August 14th, 2022. This is episode 191. WD MagicCast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graykin. In this week's show, join us as Matt and I take a stroll down memory lane and talk about one of the most talked about and influential shows of its time, MASH. We talk about our love for the show. We talk about some of the merchandising, the connection between the movies and the spin-offs, and some of the personal meanings behind the show and the way it has touched us in our lives, and maybe some surprising stories towards the end. Make sure to hold on to your hats, and particularly your Hawaiian shirts, ladies and gentlemen. This is a long one, but believe me, by the end, it will be worth it. We'll be back after these words from our friends and sponsors.
Hey Matthew, Jim Hill here. I do the Marvelous Disney podcast with Aaron Adams over at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. I know, very humble sounding name. Anyway, I really enjoy what you've been doing over on the Disney Marvels podcast, but as you probably already noticed, the Marvel Us Disney and the Disney Marvels podcast names are very, very similar, which is why I imagine I keep getting mail for you. That's actually why I'm calling today. I wanted to know what you'd like me to do with all of these Yankee Candle catalogs, so please get back to me. And keep up the great work with the Disney Marvels podcast.
Thank you for those kind words, Jim. And make sure to check out Jim Hill on the Marvel Us Disney podcast with Aaron Adams to find out all sorts of wonderful things about Disney, well, Marvel, particularly what's going on with them. And Jim, those catalogs, I'll make sure to give you the forwarding address. And unless if you want to order something, go right ahead. And once again, make sure to check out Marvel Us Disney with Jim Hill and Aaron Adams wherever you find or listen to your podcasts. And now, on with the show. Believe it or not, this is an episode 191 episodes in the making. This is an episode that will transcend all other episodes. This is an episode that will take you back and teach you some history about what has formed our great nation and entertained ourselves to the point of ridiculousness, just like this introduction. And to go on something so crazy and powerful, I need to bring on a powerful and epic guest, or co-host, as it were. And that epic and powerful co-host, of course, would be Matt Leonard.
Hello! I usually come up, I realized just now that I usually say something clever at the start of the show, and when you introduce me, I got nothing today.
Oh, we're already off topic.
I should have had something ready to go, and I something about martinis, the Toledo Mud Hens, Adam's Rib. I could have mentioned Adam's Rib.
How are the parts of the Jeep in the background that you've been collecting?
The parts of the Jeep that I've been eating.
Collecting.
No, is it the one? There's one where doesn't Klinger try? Klinger's
Yes.
going to eat Jeep. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
there is. I unfortunately did not dress
People probably
appropriately.
wondering what the heck we're talking about now. I'm sure some people have pieced it together, and some people are like, when are they going to talk about Muppets?
I thought you were going to do She-Hulk. No, She-Hulk is next week.
She-Hulk is next week.
And thankfully, they switched the broadcasting date to Thursdays.
Yay.
So that actually works out in our benefit.
Yay.
But this week we're talking about something.
This week's show.
This week's show, we're talking about something a little more prolific, and really shaped television and the movies and television.
Shaped our friendship. Our entire friendship is almost completely predicated. Is that a word? Is that the right word? Predicated?
I think
predicated on tonight's topic, which, in case for people who haven't guessed it yet, is
MASH,
the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital of the 4077th.
That has run the gamut of being a movie, a TV series with 2 spin-offs and a TV movie.
And a book series. It was a book series first.
Book series, yeah. Series first.
Robert Altman's book series, and Robert Hooker's book series. Dr. Robert Hooker, who was a Korean surgeon who served in a MASH unit, and he wrote a series of humorous books. And then Robert Altman did the movie for Fox with Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould. And then, of course, the TV series with Alan Alda and Wayne Rogers and a host of others. And then, yes, as you mentioned, two TV spinoffs, After MASH and the lesser known.
Trapper John.
You can add that. Oh yeah, I forgot about Trapper John. See, I was going to give you 3.
Trapper John MD, After MASH, and then you had Walter, but that was just the TV movie where they did the 25-minute.
It was just a one-off thing. See, my history is a little fuzzy at that point, where Radar was a detective.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't forget the movie also had Robert Duvall in it.
Oh, the movie had a couple of people. It had Sally Kellerman, had Renee Augernois, had Tom Skerritt.
Tom Skerritt.
Yeah, Robert Duvall. I almost forgot about Robert Duvall.
Renee Augernois. I mean, you want to talk about someone who's run the gambit between Star Trek, Disney, and MASH and Fox. I mean,
Robert Duvall did Star Trek?
No. Renee. Sorry, Renee Augernois.
Oh, Renee Augernois. Sure. Sally Kellerman was in Star Trek 2. Not Star Trek 2, but was also in Star Trek.
Star Trek as well.
She's literally in the first episode of Star Trek.
Oh wow.
She's in the actually I misspoke. She's actually in the second episode. She's in the first episode with Kirk. She wasn't in the one with Pike, the pilot, but she's in Where No Man Has Gone Before with the first episode with Captain Kirk.
What's my phone doing? Which, speaking of, unfortunately we lost her earlier this year, February 24th.
Yeah. Well, when did Renee Augernois pass away? Because we lost him too.
Yeah.
Now we're playing Guess the Death Date.
Yeah. No, I think we'll stick with the height better.
Yeah.
I like that one better than.
That's a much more fun game to play.
Yeah. December 8th, 2019.
Okay, so yeah, I knew we lost him recently. We lost Winchester recently, in the last year or two. We lost Wayne Rogers back in 2016. You know the one that killed me, or that really hurt me, was Alan Arbus, Dr. Sidney Friedman. We lost him, and I cried because he's one of my favorite characters. We should probably talk about this show now.
Yeah, we probably should. Well, in some ways we haven't, but
Yeah, we have, but we're. This is a terrible way to. This is a terribly disorganized show.
well, I mean that kind of it's fitting with how the MASH is
Yeah,
supposed to
the
be.
way we are.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but MASH in itself was supposed to show about the disorganization of how the hospitals were kind of run and organized or lack of organization and things were kind of taking place. And you had the goofiness end, but you also had this mobile surgical hospital. The whole premise of it in the military is you have a surgical place that you can just pick up and put where you need to be.
Yeah.
Which the TV series did address a couple times with it. Later in the series, I don't think so much at the beginning. But
Yeah.
there was a few times that they had to bug out and pack everything up and relocate.
Literally an episode called Bug Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they ended up in a cave.
Episodes. One of my favorite episodes.
Isn't that the one they end up in a cave?
No, I guess they do that twice. You're right. I think there is one where there's another one where I don't remember. They don't end up in a cave. There's one where like Klinger and Hawkeye and Houlihan end up having to go up to the front lines, and then while they're there, the rest of them have to bug out and leave the camp and have to go find something else. And then maybe I don't remember if they end up in a cave or not, but then they do all end up back at the same camp at the end of the show. They're able to push the Korean forces back, and so the MASH team is able to move back into their camp at the end of the episode. But it's a great episode. It's a great episode.
There was also another one where they had to bug out, but was it Hawkeye or BJ was in the middle of a surgery and refused to leave because his patient was unstable. So while the camp is getting shelled and all this stuff is going on, he's still trying to perform the surgery to save this person's life.
Oh, right. I remember that one.
Yeah, just another very powerful episode.
Yeah.
For a comedy, it had a lot of... It started off as a comedy.
Well, the argument was it really? It was a half-hour TV show in prime time. It happened to be funny. It had a laugh track, but it really wasn't a comedy. It was. I never view it as a comedy. I find it. I have the DVD set, and you have the choice of watching the show with or without a laugh track. And I choose to watch it without a laugh track because with the laugh track in there, I found the laugh track very distracting, yeah, and almost kind of disrespectful to some of the stuff that they're talking about. Despite the fact that it is a very funny show, it's a brilliantly funny show.
Well, I guess there's more comedy trying to push into it in the earlier seasons,
right?
And then they grew out of it, realizing that I don't think they needed it. And started focusing more on the characters and the story and the events going on.
Yeah, I mean, it evolves the same way any really good TV show evolves. But I also think as they sort of picked up speed, and realized this is something we've got some place we can go with this. We can go to this place with the series. We emotionally we can go here with the series. They're able to do some other things and some different things. But it's now let's actually start at the beginning now that we're 10 minutes into this show. Yep. Have you ever actually read any of the books?
Nope.
Okay, I actually have, and have. I don't remember how many of them there are, but I've read about 4 of them.
And please feel free to teach us about making traps for gold for mermaids.
I'm so thrilled that that's actually my favorite thing in all of MASH is a chapter in the first book that they only the first book is actually pretty much, if you've seen the movie with Robert Duvall and Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, the movie kind of follows the book ish to a point. And then a couple of things they didn't do in the book, the TV producers pilfered and did that. And they do an episode where what's the episode? They do an episode where Frank Burns is left in charge of the camp, and Trapper and Hawkeye decide to try and convince Burns that Hawkeye's lost his mind or is going crazy in an attempt to get weekend passes to Korea. They do that in the book, but not quite. It's a little bit different, where Henry Blake goes away. There's another officer who's put in charge, because Burns is actually a very, very minor character in the books.
I was going to say, he's more of a combination of characters, if I remember you tell me.
He's like three characters. I'll talk about that in a second. I'll finish this story, and then I'll talk about that in a second. But so Blake goes away. He puts this other guy in charge, and Blake decides as a sort of final ha-ha. It's like an old friend of Henry's. He knows him, and so he decides that he makes the conscientious decision not to warn him about the Swamp Men, and they decide they're going to convince him that Hawkeye's crazy, to try and get passes to Tokyo. And one of the things that he does is he looks out one morning, and Hawkeye is building this giant lobster trap. And every morning he looks out, and there's Hawkeye just building this giant lobster trap. And he says, "What do you?" He finally stops him one day and says, "What are you doing, soldier?" And he says, "I'm building a trap, sir. It's a lobster trap, sir." Is it big for a lobster trap? Yeah, well, me and some of the boys think we saw a mermaid up in the creek. And we're building a trap to catch the mermaid in the creek. And I'll refrain from saying what they're going to do to the mermaid, because this is a family show.
Yeah, we get, yeah.
It's a very, very funny scene in the book. So I'm glad you remembered that. But yeah, the book is the movie for the most part follows the book. Ish. Burns is interesting because he really is in the book. Burns is only there for maybe 6 or 7 pages, and it's 3 separate characters. There's a character who is very religious. When they first move into the swamp, there's this very religious character who's up all night reading his Bible and praying and whatever, and he's praying for their souls because he thinks that they're a waste.
Which they touched on in the movie, and but they didn't bring into the TV series.
So that's a scene. So that's one character, and he's there for like a page or two, and they just get him out of the swamp pretty quickly. There's a second character who, if you've watched the original movie, this will all sound familiar. There's a second character who makes mistakes, who's constantly making his mistakes in the OR and blaming them on others. So that's a second character who contributes to Burns. And then there's a third character, the major character, the real Frank Burns character, shows up. He's very military, and everything must be this way. And he and Houlihan are going to report all the shenanigans that are going on. And they sort of, in the middle of writing this letter, fall in love with each other and start making out, and it gets pretty heavy. And while they're making out, Radar puts a microphone underneath, slips a microphone underneath, and they're listening in on this. And then they're like, well, we have to share this with the rest of the camp. He says something about the fact, she says something about the fact that her lips are hot. And so she's suddenly deemed hot lips by everyone in the camp. And so that's the major, he's in the book for maybe 7 or 8 pages. And those 3 characters combined together give us Frank Burns, the Robert Duvall character. And then, of course, when they translated it to TV, Larry Linville took on that character and they extended the character even further through Larry Linville's performance. But it's always been kind of interesting, because I remember you and I kind of talking about the books and the movie, the books versus the movies versus the TV show, and the differences between the characters. And it's kind of interesting to talk about, because the movies, you've got an hour and a half to tell this story, and you've got all these characters. There are tons of characters in the books, in the movie. Some of which sort of are peppered into the TV show and then kind of disappear and fade out. But like Houlihan, Sally Kellerman has an hour and a half to sort of get that character and tell her story as much as possible. Loretta Swit had 11 years to tell that character's story, and so you get
involved way beyond
what was on the page, and is a one, in the first couple of years she's just kind of a foil for the guys, and then later on she's this fantastic character, with a lot of depth to her, a lot of pain to her. And
that's more power behind her.
A lot more power behind her. Got the episode with the what's the one? Maybe season 5 or 6. There's the one. Oh well, there's actually 2 really good ones. I was saying, but there's the one where they're helping the nurses help some girl to they help one of the nurses sneak out for her wedding or something, and there's a whole thing, but they don't trust Houlihan, or they don't feel like they can go to Houlihan. And there's that wonderful scene where she walks in and says, at any point, did you ever stop to offer me a cup of coffee? It's such a great performance on Loretta Swit's part.
That's amazing.
And then
amazing bit of monologue and just the way that she presents it.
Yeah. And then there's, again, this is one of the bug out episodes where they're supposed to bug out the nurses, and she walks in to Potter in the shower and says, well, she walks in and she goes, "Colonel, I need to see you. 2 steps closer and you will." But she walks and she steps. There's that great line. But then she says, "No, I do not. The nurses and I are going to stay. We're going to stay with you guys. We're going to go with you guys. We're not gonna go." And so the nurses end up staying with them and not leaving. And then the final thing in that episode is her in the shower, and Potter steps in and just says, "Major, thank you," and that's it. It's a fantastically sort of powerful moment, and very simple, very simply played, and very simply written, and wonderfully done, both on Harry Morgan's part and on Loretta Swit's part. No, but another thing I was going to talk about, because in the movie they changed this. This is one of the other big differences, is that actually in the books, Hawkeye is married and Trapper is single.
Oh.
And yeah, isn't that weird?
Is reverse of everything else.
Series. Yeah, because when they got in, I don't think it's ever really addressed in the movie at all in terms of where everybody's relationships are. When they were developing the series, Hawkeye, Trapper, and Henry were all going to be married and messing around with the nurse, making out with nurses and whatever. And the network said, no, you can't have all 3 of them cheating on their wives. So they said, all right, well, we'll make Hawkeye single, and Trapper will be married, and be a little less flirtatious, but it'll still be there. So yeah, Trapper's in the books, he does get married in I think either MASH Goes to Maine or MASH Mania, one of the other books. He marries Hawkeye's receptionist. But no, the books they're completely different from the movies and I was thinking about this the other day when we were talking about doing this show. Robert Hooker, who wrote the books, hated both the movie and the TV show because they were so different from his. He was protective of his work. They were so different from what he was doing.
Like P.L. Travers and Mary Poppins.
Equally, Robert Altman hated the TV series because it was so it just makes a mockery of what we. He really was when they did the MASH movie, the first MASH movie, was the height of the Vietnam War. So he was really writing a protest. He's like, this is us speaking out against the war. Right. We're setting it Korea, but this is really a statement about the Vietnam War. And he felt that the TV series was sort of making light of war too much. I forgot if there were arguments that yes they were and no they weren't, but so that's a little sort of brief history of the early days of MASH, and now we can talk more about the TV show.
Well, let's give like a timeline here, just so people have an understanding. If you're not familiar with MASH, and you're listening to this episode, go, well, I might have heard of this show, or you two are both crazy. What is this show that you're talking about? Do yourself a favor and check them all out. The movie is not as family friendly. The TV show is a little more general audience.
Kind of, but not really.
Yeah.
It's a little easy.
It's a little bit easier to watch. The movie definitely not.
No.
The movie came out in 1970, rated R. Like you said, it's an hour and a half. It's they throw a lot into that movie. They cover a lot of bases in that. The TV series came out 2 years later in 1972, ran to 1983 with a total of 251 episodes. And for the longest time had the highest rated season finale of any TV show. I think they did lose that title. I forget, was it Seinfeld?
I think Cheers beat him first, and then Seinfeld beat Cheers.
Okay.
And I think a couple other shows since then have, I think, beaten Seinfeld, but I don't remember who. But yeah, at the time, I remember the finale was like huge.
Yeah, it was a fantastic finale. Where I personally feel a lot of shows flounder their last episode. It never pays off well. This one, I particularly the very last moment, and you probably know the moment I'm talking about, really just hits it home.
But they also had the benefit of they knew they were pulling the plug, that season 11 was going to be the last one. And the interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is that they did a TV movie called Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. And they actually filmed that before their last season. And they were able to go into the last season kind of knowing where everybody was going to be at the end of it. And actually, the real interesting thing here, we're talking about Loretta Swit. The real last episode that they filmed is the time capsule. You know the episode I'm talking about? They bury a time capsule, and
okay.
They decide to bury a time capsule, and they actually do a really good job of. They mention a couple of the characters who are no longer on the show. They sort of cleverly slip references to those characters into the episode, and when they bury the time capsule, Margaret Houlihan, Loretta Swit, has this wonderful speech that she gives the entire that she gives to the MASH company, and talking about the special people who were here. There's a lot of emotion in that scene.
As time goes by. That's the
I'm sorry. Is that the episode? As Time Goes By is the name of the episode?
Yeah, it's the second to last. It's episode 15 of the 16 episodes of that season.
There's a lot of emotion in that episode as she addresses everyone, because that actually is the last scene that they filmed. That is actually the last thing. And so when she's saying she's talking about the special people who were here and how much they mean to her. That is actually her addressing everyone on the set. Wow. And it's a beautiful, beautiful scene. Yeah, that's the last thing that was filmed for MASH, actually. The scene that you're talking about, which is, of course, the sandbag spelling out goodbye, which is an iconic image, was done probably like 12 months earlier.
Probably.
But you're right. I mean, you can't top that as far as a closing image for a TV show to go out on.
I was going to go with that. After MASH came out same year, 1983, only ran to 85 with 30 episodes. And I never knew of this show for whatever reason until you told me about it. That Trapper John MD ran from 1979 to 1986 with 151 episodes.
Right.
And I never knew about it. I don't know how I didn't know about this show.
I don't know.
And then, like I said, the aforementioned Walter quote-unquote TV movie, which I guess was a pilot. And they're now calling it a TV movie because it was a 25-minute movie.
But even Aftermath, I think you said it ran like 2 seasons, but it really didn't. There's only like 6 episodes of Aftermath, I think, or something like that.
30.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Is it that many? Holy cow.
Aftermath, yeah. It says there's 30 episodes. Yes, 21 episodes the first season, 9 episodes the second season.
I didn't realize it lasted that long, because even I didn't know about that until much later on. My sister told me about it, and I was like, "What? No, that didn't happen. That wasn't real. You're making stories up." But no, it's a real thing.
Yeah, Aftermath. The Korean War has ended. Colonel Potter, Sergeant Klinger, and Father Mulcahy find themselves together once again. This time at a veterinarian's hospital.
Veterans Hospital, isn't it?
Veterans Hospital. Thank you. Sorry.
What are you?
It's late.
We're not doing the Muppet Show this week, Matt.
Next week on Veterinarian's Hospital, here Dr. Bob
The
says.
continuing story of a quack that's gone to the dogs. But I'll give you a fun fact about Aftermath.
Yes, please.
Which is that Klinger's wife in Aftermath. Klinger gets married at the end of the series. His wife went on to play Keiko O'Brien on Star Trek: The Next Generation. On Next Generation and on Deep Space Nine.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot of interesting connections there.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
The Disney end, the Star Trek end, and the MASH end.
Yeah.
In case people were wondering, Dave August Stiers, if you don't recognize the name, he also appeared in an episode of Star Trek Next Generation. He played Major Winchester in MASH, who replaced the Frank Burns character partway through the series, and voiced many characters in multiple Disney movies, including Jabba Jakiba in The Lone Stitch, Governor Ratcliffe in Pocahontas, and Cogsworth, Beauty and the Beast. Also the Bishop.
The narrator in Beauty and the Beast. He does that opening narration.
Yeah, he's also the open narrator. He was also the Archbishop in Hunchback.
Oh, wow. I think Cogsworth is the one that everybody sort of most remembers him for, because he's so wonderful as Cogsworth. But I think he's
brilliant.
He was a phenomenal actor. He was a really diverse actor who could kind of do just about anything. I mean, he dramatically, he was great. Comedically, he was great. So talented.
Yeah, great voice.
Yeah. And there was the other thing that should be when, and we can sort of tie this back to MASH. One of the things about him was that he was also a very accomplished orchestra conductor. And he actually conducted. He had a more than passing interest in classical music, and listened to it and conducted orchestras. And that was actually one of the fun things about MASH, was that they were encouraged to bring a little bit of themselves to their characters. And so one of the things that happened was he had an interest in classical music, and so Winchester developed an interest in classical music, and his knowledge, he could sort of, as an actor, bring that knowledge and that intelligence to the character of Winchester.
They didn't replace Burns with a carbon copy.
Yeah.
They went kind of the opposite direction in a lot of ways with those two characters.
Yeah, and I think that was always to, not just try to not try to recreate that character, but just to sort of to bring it in a new direction. And I think that sort of served the series really well, because it just gave them new material and fresher material.
Yeah.
But the other one I was going to mention, Gary Berghoff, was another one who had who had an interest in animals, and so his character Radar O'Reilly had an interest in animals and loved animals. Harry Morgan had a love for horses, so Colonel Potter had a love for horses.
Horse hockey.
Horse hockey. There's somebody else. Oh, BJ's daughter, actually. BJ Honeycutt we would refer to his daughter Erin, and that was actually Mike Farrell's daughter was Erin. So that whenever BJ had to talk about missing Erin, he could sort of just tap into that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, isn't it though?
I was going to say, going with the music again, the theme song, which originated from the movie and then what translated into the TV show. I was reading apparently that it was Robert Altman's son Mike, who was 14 at the time, wrote the song.
Oh, really?
Yep. And since it was included, it was moved into the TV show, so he's constantly getting royalties from it.
Oh, nice.
Estimated that his father was paid $75,000 to direct the TV series. Would you like to take a guess on how much money?
It was paid $75,000 to direct the movie. You mean?
Right, the movie. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
How much his son ended up making from royalties from the?
I'm gonna guess his son is 5'8" tall.
I think you're about right on that.
Sorry, we're playing a different game. That's
different game.
This is a different. This is guess what somebody's worth. I'm guessing more. He's made way more on the theme song than his father made for the movie.
You're right.
How much?
$2 million.
Wow. Nice.
And that was at whatever point this was added in. Obviously the thing's still in syndication and still being sold on DVD and digital copies and whatnot. So he's still making out from that.
I'm sure.
It's a very moving song, especially when you start reading into the lyrics.
Yeah.
It's again those weird connections between the movie and the TV show, even though they have not much to do with each other, but there's still a lot of connective tissue. Again, Gary Berghoff being one of them as well.
Yeah, he was the only major player to make the jump, but there was also one of the
nurses,
generals.
wasn't it?
I don't think any of the nurses did. I think one of the generals made the jump from.
Oh, maybe.
Jump. I can't remember his name now. It'll come to me. Hang on. Or at least I know what I. No, that's not who I'm thinking of. Who? It'll come to me. But yeah, there was one of the. I'll see if I can find it. We can edit this later because I'm bringing the show down. I'm terrible.
Dad.
Yeah. It'll come to me. I can picture his face. It's one of those things where I can picture his face.
Found him.
What's his name?
G. Woods.
G. Woods. I knew there was a G.
Yeah, Brigadier General Hammond.
Yeah. He was in the movie and the TV series, but he was. And didn't Ugly John. I think there was one other MASH Ugly John actor. There was
Carl Gottlieb.
It was John Orchard in the TV series. Maybe Ugly John was somebody different. No, I guess Ugly John was somebody different.
He's somebody different in the movie.
Yeah, because it was John Orchard in the TV series. Ugly John is actually a character from the books. He was one of the characters who kind of made the transition from the books to the movies, and then the movies to the TV show just a little bit, and then they sort of he went away over time.
Well, just to throw things even crazier, the actor who played him in the movie, Carl, wrote for the Bob Newhart Show, Flip Wilson, Odd Couple, and did the screenplay for Jaws.
Oh, really?
Yeah, plus Saturday Night Live.
Oh, nice.
So he's actually done quite a bit, but more behind the scenes.
That's okay.
And
And
just
I think
just to make, because we have to have some sort of connectivity here. The
Sure.
segment that he wrote was the Muppet segment for Saturday Night Live.
for Saturday Night Live, that's not something you want to brag about. It's not something you brag about.
No, but
What was I going to? Oh, and Tom Skerritt was supposed to. I think at one point they had made an offer to Tom Skerritt to reprise the role of Duke Forrest for the TV series, and I don't remember if I think he was going to do it, but then they decided not to add him at the last. The cast was just too big at that point, so he got pushed by the wayside. Oh well, that's life.
that happens more often than not in Hollywood. Yeah, it's, as we were talking before the show, MASH was particularly the TV series, covered so much ground in ways that most shows didn't do at its time.
Yeah. I was about to argue that, and then I realized that no, actually, a lot of the shows, I think the 70s in television particularly, there was a it's funny, we talk about like, oh, this TV show has gone so woke, or that TV show is, oh, they're spreading this, they're spreading that. And I think, no, man, go back and watch some of the TV shows from the 70s. Look at MASH, look at Maude, look at All in the Family, and the things that they were talking about, and the things that they were, trying to spark conversation. The 70s were actually a much more intelligent time for television, because you would be making these statements about war, about racism, about, women's rights or whatever else. These were all things that were covered on, I won't say every show in the 70s, but a lot of them.
them.
The Jeffersons were, Good Times was kind of covering a lot of that stuff. I think even One Day at a Time did a couple of things. No, I don't think quite as many, but yeah, MASH was really, really groundbreaking in terms of the material that they were trying to cover and what they were trying to say and what they were doing. And again, discussing predominantly their attitude towards war. But again, gay rights was covered in that show. So, or gays in the military were covered in that show. Racism was covered in that show. Women's rights.
A lot of times, a lot of racism.
A lot of racism. And just sort of the military industry in general, and was addressed on a regular basis in terms of, you still see it. These, we're gonna send the boys off to war, and you're sitting at a desk, just collecting your paycheck. Sorry, I'm wandering a little bit. A lot of that who suffer. There's a great speech. There's a great speech between Hawkeye and Father Mulcahy, where someone says something about the fact that war is hell, and he says, "No,
yeah, hell is hell. War is
war, and hell is hell, and of the two of them, war is a lot worse." And he asks the question, "Who goes to hell?" And Mulcahy says, "Sinners." And he goes, right, in war, who goes to war? And he said there are no innocent bystanders in war. It's the people who suffer in war are it's a fantastic speech. It's a wonderful speech. And we talk about this TV show or that TV show being woke now. Fella, turn on an old episode of MASH because it'll open your eyes. This is stuff that's been being talked about on television for 50 years. In the guise of entertainment. And again, what was also great about MASH was there was still humor and love and hope at the end of the day. But you were also given something to think about. It was intelligent television. And I kind of wish we had more of that.
Yeah, I have the quote here.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Burns goes, "Everybody knows war is hell." BJ goes, "Remember, you heard it here last." Then Hawkeye jumps in, "War isn't hell. War is war and hell's hell. And of the two of them, war is a lot worse." McCahey questions, "How do you figure that, Hawkeye?" Hawkeye responds, "Easy, Father. Tell me, who goes to hell?" McCahey's response is sinners, I believe. And Hawkeye's response is exactly. There is no innocent bystanders in hell, but war is chock full of them. Little kids, cripples, old ladies. In fact, except for a few of the brass, almost everybody involved is an innocent bystander.
Yeah.
So that sums it up.
Great quote. It's such a great quote. And I can almost guarantee you, I think Alan Alda wrote that.
Most likely.
Most likely.
One of my history classes this year that I was in, they were covering the Vietnam War. And the teacher was trying to find a video or something to show the kids towards the end of the year when things were dying down. And I said, well, I don't have something from the Vietnam War, but I have something of the Korean War, but it's the same premise. And it was the Yankee Doodle Doctor episode, because he was talking about how the media influenced or portrayed things versus how things were.
Right.
And so that episode immediately came to mind, which is a season 1 episode, but how a movie, because back in the Korean War, it was more, you still went to the theaters to catch your news versus watching it on TV. So there was a film crew going to the 477 MASH to show how wonderful these doctors are and how, our GIs are so well taken care of and everything is great and glorious. And Hawkeye and Trapper John get a hold of the camera and make their own documentary called The Yankee Doodle Doctor, making a mockery of the film that the director was trying to produce. When they're showing it to the general. And then again, at the end, it cuts to Hawkeye sitting by himself, giving another great speech about what is really happening there.
Right.
And the teacher, who had never seen MASH before, because he's a younger gentleman in his early 30s, late 20s, was quite impressed by the show.
Yeah. Well, one of the things they did was, they drew from the book a little, but they talked to actual Korean doctors, or not Korean doctors, but doctors who served in the Korean War, who were in some of these MASH units. And they pulled a lot of things. And one of the things, there's actually an episode, it's actually where there's like a documentary on the MASH unit. And God, it's a great episode because they were given a series. All of the actors were given a series of questions that their characters might be asked, and they were all allowed to riff in character on whatever they felt their character wanted to talk about. They were given a lot, and then there were a couple people who were given specific speeches, and one of the ones was Father Mulcahy was asked about how the war has affected him, and the great Bill Christopher, who played that character, has this one, and he said this was something that came from those interviews. When the doctors are operating and they first cut the patient open, and they hold their hands over the body a moment to warm they use the heat of the body to warm their hands. You cannot see that without being affected by it. And that was something that came from the interviews with the doctors. They said this was something that we used to do. This was something that actually happened. And, you cannot go through that without somehow being affected by it.
Right.
So stuff like that made its way into the show and, made for a very powerful show. The fact that you also had fantastic actors who could deliver this stuff and could also then turn around and be really funny too, but then turn on these wonderful emotive performances. Really wonderful series.
Yeah, some of the latter ones where you had Hawkeye, which became much more central of the focus of the series became a lot more centralized on him. But there's the one where he ends up with a concussion and he's in a Korean household and he's talking to them about the amazing thumb. And the family, no idea what to do with him and just kind of going about their business. But just kind of, it's lighthearted. You understand the situation that his character is in, but some of the stuff that he's saying is quite interesting.
And it's also sort of... Oh, I'm sorry. Finish your point.
I was going to say, the flip side of it is one of the last episodes, or is it actually, I think it's the last episode, where he's dealing with PTSD, which was really not talked about at that point in time. And the psychological trauma that his character had gone through. And I'm not going to spoil it by saying what all happened, but he keeps reliving this moment, and his mind is altering what happened. But you could tell how much it's affected him in such a deep way that it just has basically destroyed him.
Well, it was you bring up a good point, which is the discussion about PTSD, and I don't think it's ever really given a name in the series, but they did introduce the character of Dr. Sidney Friedman. Alan Arbus was the actor who played him. Dr. Sidney Friedman, who was a psychologist. He was a military psychiatrist. And, they were able to go there and discuss, again, in something that wasn't really talked about. They were able to have characters who were dealing with issues from the army, or from being in the military, from being drafted, from one thing or another, and kind of put a little bit of a spotlight on that. So you're right, in that regard, the show was very groundbreaking in terms of another thing that they talked about.
Yeah, and they deal with it in such a sensitive way, and like you said, Sidney was a fantastic character that they brought in. Who was the occasional guest character. He wasn't always there. It showed up a little more
towards the end, pretty regularly.
Yeah,
he was in at least once a season, and sometimes two or three or four times a season they'd bring him in. Later on, like you said, he was in more and more later on.
But just again, being able to go with some of the more serious moments, but that character also would say sometimes you just need to drop your pants sometimes.
Everyone, please take my advice. Drop down your pants and slide on the ice was his famous line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, there you go. They did one where even Sidney deals with a PTSD. Like he himself deals with losing a patient.
Right.
And how he deals with that. So you deal with Sidney's PTSD as well. Yeah. But I wanted to circle back because you talked about the episode where Hawkeye drives his Jeep off the road and he suffers a concussion.
Yes.
And got to wait in the Korean house. It's such a great episode because when you watch it, it is 24 minutes of, it's one actor. It's 24 minutes of just Alan Alda. There's a Korean family around him who don't speak any English, but all of the dialogue in that episode, and he decides to keep himself up and moving and talking so that he doesn't pass out because he might have he thinks he might have a concussion. And so it's literally 24 minutes of just Alan Alda talking and doing this spiel, and he's not working. I shouldn't say he's not working against another actor because, like I said, there's a Korean family around him, but they are not given any English lines of dialogue. It's just him maintaining it, and it's a beautifully done episode. People don't take chances like that on television anymore to do stuff like that. You know, we're just gonna put the camera on our lead actor and just let him go for 24 minutes, and he's able to talk about, you know, and again riff on some of these ideas and some of these ideals that make up the heart of the series. You know.
Yeah, I wish I could remember what episode that is.
It's later on. It's a BJ. It's one of the ones after BJ. It's like season 8 or 9, something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back here and see if I can find it.
7 or 8. I think Radar. Right. I think that might be one of the Radar still part of the cast at that point too.
I'm not finding it, but again, just so many moments in this series that they do so well and really develops the humanity or the human side of
the episode is simply titled Hawkeye.
Okay.
The 19th episode. Oh wow, it's much earlier than I thought. It's the 19th episode of the 4th season.
Oh,
I thought
really?
It was much later.
I thought it was much later than that.
Nope, 19th episode, January 13th, 1976.
And that's strange because IMDb has it listed as the 18th episode.
Well, clearly somebody is wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's either here nor there.
Doesn't
That's
make a difference.
Great episode. What's your while we're on this subject, what's your favorite episode, Mash?
Oh dear goodness.
Yeah, I know this is a tough. I've got 3 I can go to off the top of my head that are my go-to pick-me-ups. They're not, for as great as some of their dramatic stuff is, the 3 episodes that I tend to lean to are the pick-me-ups, the ones that make me laugh the hardest.
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think here.
If you were going to go get the DVDs right now and watch an episode, which one would you watch?
One of the ones that comes to mind that I enjoy because of it's got kind of like a mixed bag of everything is, I couldn't tell you what season it is, but once I tell you it, you'll probably know.
Okay.
It's the one, so Trapper John leaves at the end of whatever season. So they write out the character.
3.
Right. So Hawkeye comes back from leave to find that his friend has left him.
Right.
And then him and Radar have to go pick up BJ.
Yeah.
And just like the weird antics going on. So Hawkeye just, strolls up. Frank Burns is in charge. And you go, here, Frank, here's a MacArthur doll returned from anywhere. And he's just kind of, hung over from everything. And then he just quickly sobers up when he realizes that his friend has left him. Trapper's gone. How does he not say goodbye? He's like, well, we tried to reach you. You should have reached out. Just the whole range. And then they have to go to Seoul. I guess it's Seoul to pick up BJ. And they go to the officers club. It's like, Radar, I can't go in there. Here, you take the captain's pin off of BJ, stuck out a Radar. You're Captain Corporal. Make a whole mockery of the situation. So that is one that I really, really enjoy. goodness, I can't.
I like Movie Night is a favorite. There's, I think it's season 5 or 6. There's one where they've been working for like 3 days straight in the OR, and they finally get a night off, and everybody's kind of like at each other, and so Potter decides that they're gonna have a movie night, and he orders this movie, My Darling Clementine, and he orders them that they're going to watch it. And of course, the movie projector breaks and all these things go wrong, and they end up having to entertain themselves. And apparently the actors, again, were given a lot of leeway in terms of what they were allowed to do. There's a song called Jima, I Want to Go Home, which is an old, actually, Army standard. This was sung at these this was an actual song used in the military and sung in these little sort of informal get-togethers. The troops would enter, and everybody would write their own. The troops, and again, real song, would all be allowed to write their own verse, and they'd just go around the circle, and everybody would sing their verse. And so when they did it on the show, all of the cast members were allowed to sing, to write their own verse for their character, and sing it. So they were given. And then the other thing they did was they announced the Father Mulcahy sound-alike contest. And that was actually, and they steal Bill Christopher's hat and they pass it around, Father Mulcahy's hat.
Oh, geez.
And they pass it around, and everybody does an impression of Father Mulcahy. This was apparently something that they would do in between takes. Everybody could do impressions of this one actor. And if you watch the episode, you can see who did impressions of who did it the most and who did it the most often, because there were 3 or 4 that are like really, really. Loretta Switz is really spot on. Gary Berghoff's is spot on. Alan Alda's is really good. You can see that. And again, everybody was just sort of given a lot of leeway to. I think Jamie Farr is the other one who's really, really close to, So it was a fun thing. Everybody was just allowed to have a lot of fun with this episode, and you can see them having fun with this episode. Gary Berghoff, who did impressions, got up and did, 3 or 4 impressions, did an impression of Jack Benny, did an impression of a couple other people and characters. So that's a fun episode, or one of my favorites. I like going back to the character of Sidney Friedman. I think there's an episode they would do, I think once a season they would do an episode usually called Dear Something. It would be a character writing a letter home. And I think the Dear Dad was the first one. It was Hawkeye writing home. And then they did Dear Dad again. They did a second one. And then they started doing it with the other characters. Radar wrote home. Dear Mom. Dear Ma. What was the name of Potter's wife?
Mildred.
Dear Mildred was one. They did a wonderful play on the whole thing. Winchester dictated his Dear Mom and Dad, where rather than write a letter, he dictated the entire thing onto a. And then they did a fantastic one. Dear Peg, I think, was one. I think BJ wrote a letter home. They did a wonderful one. They did a sort of variant on that where they got letters from a 5th grade class, and everybody was writing letters to it was all of the characters writing letters to a 5th grade class. But my favorite was they brought Sidney Friedman in, the psychiatrist character, and the episode was called Dear Sigmund. And
yes,
it was Sidney Friedman writing a letter to Sigmund Freud.
I remember that one.
Him writing a letter talking about looking at the characters at the MASH compound through the eyes of a psychiatrist. And in addition, it was a real interesting character study on each of these characters, and also just a really funny episode too. That's a favorite. There's an early one called Tuttle. Do you remember Tuttle?
Yes, I was going to actually mention Tuttle.
Tuttle is my one. Whenever I need to pick me up, I watch. The idea is that they're requisitioning supplies and donating them to the local orphanage. And so that they don't get caught, it's this fictitious, it's Hawkeye's imaginary best friend as a child, Tuttle, who got drafted into the military with him. And so they create this character, John Tuttle, and they sign these requisition forms as John Tuttle. And then somebody sees the name John Tuttle. Well, I don't know who that is, and Tuttle starts getting signed up. He's the officer of the day. Tuttle has to be spending a night, watching over the OR. Tuttle has to be doing, and they have to start faking the character of Tuttle, and it's one of the funniest episodes in the series. The wonderful scene where they actually sneak into the they have to create a file for Tuttle.
Yep.
There's all these things. Religion.
He gets a paycheck.
Religion. Let's make him a druid. I mean, one of my other favorite lines in there is he goes, "There's what hometown? Where is he from?" And Radar jumps up and goes, "Well, let's make him from where I'm from, Ottumwa, Iowa." Like I says, "No, they've already done enough for the military." But that's and then the best thing is that there's all this paycheck that Tuttle hasn't been collecting, so they're going to donate it to the orphanage. And Tuttle's supposed to be at the ceremony, and the whole thing's that Hawkeye shows up, and he's got this whole thing about how Tuttle went out this morning as the hero that he is, went up with a chopper to go and find look for wounded in the fields or whatever, and he took everything he needed, his medical bag, his dog tags, everything he possibly need, except a parachute. And it's the whole, and it's just what Tuttle meant so much to all of us. In fact, you could even say that together we all sort of made up Tuttle. God bless you, Captain Jonathan Tuttle. And they're all teary-eyed and misty and wistful about this character who doesn't even exist.
And Frank Burns swore that he knew him. Yeah.
Right. Right. There's all the. Oh yeah, no, you had lunch with him this morning. And then later on, it's no. Well, how can you question that he exists? I had lunch with him this morning.
One of the ones I was thinking of, there was a book. They had one copy of the book, and they kept passing it around.
Yeah, the murder mystery.
Yes.
Oh,
and God. I think but someone lost the last page.
Right. And then they spend the whole episode everybody has various theories on who it is, and they think they've got it worked out, and they end up having to call this poor author in the States to try and find out who the killer is. I think
they get mad at who they find out who it actually is because they were all wrong or something like that.
Yeah. There was another really good episode I just thought of, and it went in and it went out. Now I can't remember which one it was.
Well, when you mentioned about the movie, the one I thought about is whenever Hawkeye tries to requisition this classic movie, because they've been getting such horrible films, and they do everything to try and get this classic movie. And I forget, but somehow it goes completely wrong.
Is that the one where he ends up with tongue depressors? There's one where he ends up with a bunch of tongue depressors and he builds a monument to stupidity.
No, I don't think it was that one. Because they end up with the film can. It's like, oh, this is going to be the best movie that we've ever seen.
I don't remember that one. I remember the one where he's got to order dinner from Adam's Rib.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
That's an early one.
Yeah.
But no, the other good episode that I was just thinking, there's actually one where he gets sent to the front line. And while he's there, the medic at the front line is killed, and he gets sent up, and he's there, and he's being shelled. And in between patients, he starts writing his last will and testament. And he goes down the line, and it's almost he goes down the line, the list of characters, and he keeps trying to, and he leaves all of them something, and he ends up having these flashbacks to, and I'm going to describe this episode, and it's going to sound like it's some sort of lame framework for a clip show, but it's really not. What it is, he has you see these memories that he's had with these characters. It's almost like clips from the show that never really appeared in any of the shows. These things,
right,
and what each of these, again, it's a really, really good character study, and his relationships to each of these characters and what they mean to him, and then what he would choose to leave to them. And my favorite one, the best one, there's a great one with, like, he leaves. What does he leave? Margaret Houlihan, who's been, like I said early on in the series, is a foil, and then the character evolves and becomes really more part of the group. So he leaves her. He's got this whole thing about the fact that he gets to know her silly side, and so he leaves her his Groucho Marx glasses. And then there's something about Winchester. I don't remember what the story with Winchester is, but there's something about Winchester's. The grace and dignity with which he handles things, and so he leaves Winchester the piece of the finest article of clothing I own, my bathrobe. Something about, I remember Klinger. There's a whole thing that Klinger comes to him with all these magazines that have pictures of his home in Crabapple Cove. Crabapple Cove, Maine, and he gives all of these magazines with Crabapple Cove in them to Hawkeye. Hawkeye goes out, and he's flipping through these magazines, and he runs into this supply sergeant from another unit who's got this giant salami. And he says, can you believe that Klinger just gave this to me in exchange for a couple of crummy magazines? And it's actually, it's not something that was accidentally sent to MASH. It was a trade that Klinger went through and gave something extremely valuable to Klinger in order to get the magazines for Hawkeye. And so he's like, I give you the shirt off my back, is what he leaves. And Potter, he leaves Colonel Potter, he leaves his undying respect. But the best thing, and I'll ruin the episode, I don't care, because I just think it's so wonderfully done. He constantly, through the episode, to BJ Honeycutt, my best friend, and he stops and he scratches that out. And then he does another one, he does the thing with Potter. And they to BJ Honeycutt, my best friend, and he scratches that out. And then he goes on and he does the one with, and this is all through the episode, he's doing this. And the last thing in the episode is he gets home, he gets back to the MASH unit, everybody's asleep. I think he and BJ have some sort of back and forth, and he goes over to the office where the records are kept, and he sits down with his last will and testament, and he goes to Aaron Honeycutt, and he talks about it. He's, I can't explain. I cannot take away the years that your father was away from you, but to you I leave this. I leave a list of all the people your father saved while he was over here. And he proceeds to write out all of the patients that BJ helped. And that's what, rather than leave anything to BJ, he leaves this list of patients to to BJ's daughter. It's such a wonderful moment. Again, just to sort of go there emotionally with the TV show. That's a comedy that can touch you in that way. That's what makes MASH so wonderful.
And then they'll do an episode where Hawkeye is hellbent on finding out what BJ stands for.
Who names their kid BJ?
Jay. An episode I was going to bring up, not one of my favorites, but just as I was going through, and I just happened to see the cast list on this one. It's called Deal Me Out. It's actually the second one that has that Sydney appears in. So of course you have your usuals, Wayne Rogers, Alan Alda, McLean Stevenson, Loretta
Pat
Swift.
Morita, isn't he? Is it Pat Morita? That one?
Pat Morita, and the character that the episode's actually focused around, John Ritter.
Oh. Wow! Wait, I thought John Ritter was much later in the series.
No, this is season 3, episode 13, or season 2, episode 13.
Wow, I forgot that was that early.
Yeah,
the series had. I mean, the series had some amazing guest stars, a lot, and even a couple like Ron Howard did an episode. Terry Garr was in an episode. George Wendt, pre-Cheers, was in an episode.
Yeah, he was in. He was got a cue ball stuck in his mouth, and
And the one that I think surprises everybody, you know, who was in an episode of MASH? Andrew Dice Clay
Yes.
was in one of the later episodes of MASH. I was very, very, very offensive comedian who I don't think is around much anymore, thankfully. But
he's been trying to clean things up and make a comeback, and I'll tell you a story off the air about that.
yeah, we can talk later about him. He's not family friendly, but his stuff is so like that it sort of surprises people. Like, oh yeah, one of the first things he did in television was he's in an episode of MASH.
Mm-hmm. And you got a lot of interesting people that showed up on this, and it was a lot of them. It was in the beginning parts of their career.
Yeah. Well, Ron Howard was kind of in the middle.
Ron's been around.
I think he was post Andy Griffith certainly, but I think his appearance was sort of like just pre-Happy Days. But John Ritter's was, I mean, if it was second season, that was way before Three's Company.
Oh,
certainly.
Yeah.
George Wendt, like I said, that was before Cheers, because MASH went off the air in '83 and Cheers started in '84 or '85. No, MASH went off in '82.
MASH went off in '83.
Okay, yeah, and then Cheers was '84 or '85, and George Wendt was one of the last two seasons.
Yeah, Cheers was '82.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
So a little crossover there, but
not really. Yeah.
Let's see here. Find out. Go back here.
Marcia Strassman from Welcome Back, Kotter and Honey, I Shrunk the Kid was a regular on the series in season 2. She was Margie Cutler. She was so cute.
So, 80. He was in an episode in '82.
Okay.
It was around that same time.
Yeah, but if MASH ended in '82 and Cheers started in '82, you figure
Cheers started '83. MASH 82. Cheers started '82. MASH ended '83.
Right. So you figure MASH ended May of '82. Cheers started September of '82. So George Wendt was probably in the middle of what did you say? What season George Wendt was in? Was he in the last season or was it just before that?
He was in '82, so it had been the season before. I'm trying to get you the episode. I went too far. But yeah, like I said, you'd have a lot of people.
A lot of people who were
just showing up.
Leslie Nielsen was in the show.
Yeah.
And did like one of the most powerful. I think a lot of people forget that Leslie Nielsen was before being the master of idiot comedy. Leslie Nielsen was actually a dramatic actor and was actually romantic. Usually played the romantic lead in movies and was really good at it. Before he switched to doing screwball comedies like Airplane and Naked Gun.
The episode he was on was season 11, 1982. So
is that George Wendt we're talking about?
Yep. Okay. George Wendt aired November 1st, 82, which was just as MASH, just as Cheers was starting off.
Okay.
Why is Cheers not coming up? Because Cheers that started 82 as well. First episode September 30th, 82. So I've been 6 episodes into Cheers.
Okay.
6-7 episodes. So, but still, I guess, well, try to get some of that synergy that going, advertise one to the other. But yeah, it's it was a heck of a show. And something else I want to bring up here to make the transition. Everyone thinks now, the merchandise ending, people aren't going to merchandise and come out with, back then you didn't get anything because you didn't have VHS for anything like that. And now, what's the most that you did with MASH? You got the DVDs, you got some T-shirts, and you had the VHS tapes at one point, and that's about it with MASH. And nowadays they merchandise the heck out of things, come up with action figures and board games and
Game of
video
Thrones.
games and you name it, they got it. Lunchboxes, yes, lunchboxes, kids. These were the metal thing or plastic or metal things that had handles that came with a container to put your juice in and carried your lunch in and banged around.
And they had merchandise for MASH, and
they had a lot of merchandise for MASH.
And some of it is really kind of, when you consider that this was a show set during the Korean War in a military hospital, some of the merchandise was a little. And I think we should come clean on how tonight's show came. The reason Matt and I are all talking is the lead up to this. I was on vacation this past week, and I was in a toy museum. And as I was leaving the toy museum, they had there was a display of all of these old board games, and they had a MASH board game, which I had never heard of. And I went home and I actually Googled, or I went back to the place I was staying and I actually Googled this board game, and the description of it is so. This is an awful thing to be marked, and it's like ages like 7 to 14. I'm like, this is an awful. It's like you must get the patients to the helicopter pad. So they had like. This is awful. This is kind of tacky. I must have one. I must own one. And I sent a picture. I immediately took a picture. I sent this to Matt. And I sent a picture to him because, again, our friendship is predicated on a shared love for MASH. And now it was like, well, this is something we need to talk about. And we need to talk about, you people are now suffering because we've discovered this board game. We must own one. I want to play this now. But you said you found stuff. What else did you find?
So the game that you're talking about.
Please tell me you have the description and you can read the description.
I have the description.
So help me.
It's by Milton Bradley.
Yes.
Ages 7 to 14. And let's see here. I thought I had some information on it. It came out in 1981.
That's the weird thing. It's like towards the end of MASH. Oh, it's only got 2 stars on Board Game Geek. Gee, I wonder why.
I don't have.
I have the description.
You have the description. Go. You hit me with it, and then I'm going to hit you with something else.
Hawkeye Pierce, Major Margaret Houlihan, BJ Honeycutt, and Klinger of the MASH team are hard at work once again bringing wounded safely to the chopper pad so the injured can start their journey home. It's up to you to rescue at least 6 wounded and get a complete chopper to the chopper pad. Get a complete chopper to the chopper pad by moving along the path in either direction. You do this by trying to land on MASH spaces where you can collect wounded and chopper parts. But be careful, some of the MASH cards on the MASH spaces can hinder your rescue mission. The supply depot can help you complete your chopper so you can make a speedy escape to the chopper pad and send your wounded safely home. Beware of the fire zone spaces where you will lose a turn and possibly lessen your chances of rescuing your wounded and getting your chopper. So select your favorite MASH character from the game board, roll the die, and begin your rescue mission. And then there's a cute little board game board here. You can find this on Board Game Geek. The board's actually kind of very much Milton Bradley at that time. This is a slightly horrifying idea that this board game exists.
So,
but then, oh gosh, I'm terrified.
Let me make you ponder some more. That's actually the second board game for MASH to come out.
No.
Yes.
There's another one?
There was another one that came out 1975 by Transogram.
Transogram?
Transogram.
Gee, I wonder why they're out of business.
And it looks like it's
my.
It actually came with a helicopter and it had props on the board.
Here we go. Okay, wait. I've got the board game. Race to obtain the Jeep and/or the helicopter, then rush to the finish space under the tent to receive their transfer orders. The first player to reach the tent with the Jeep or helicopter or both gets a transfer home. Draft Dodger, the board game.
Pretty much.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh. Ducking out of the military has never been so much fun. Oh, but the pieces are really cute.
Yeah.
The little hot lips. This is great because they're not even, the pieces aren't even the other one. The pieces all look like it's pictures of the actors, but these are little cartoon characters here.
Very
see.
cartoonized. Yeah. Cartoonized.
I can't see well enough to see who everybody is. I can see
Well,
obviously Hot Lips. I think that one's supposed to be Radar.
you have Hot Lips, Hawkeye, Blake next to Hot Lips there, and I'm can't tell who's driving. I'm thinking it might be Radar.
Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. The swamp, the office. It looks almost like a little Monopoly board, but it's all specific to the characters.
For 2, 3, or 4 players ages 7 and up.
Well, I think I'm looking. You're looking at the picture of the. You're looking at the picture of the cover.
Yes.
That's Hawkeye, Hot Lips, Blake, and I think that's Trapper driving.
That would make probably more of a Trapper.
For 2, 3, or 4 players. See, I was actually looking at the game pieces in the next picture, and I'm trying to figure out. The Hot Lips one is obvious. If the others are supposed to be Trapper, Hawkeye, and Blake, I have no idea which one is supposed to be which. I don't know. But oh my gosh, I can't believe this exists.
It does have their names over it, but the picture I'm looking at,
it's so blurry.
Yeah, the resolution isn't good enough to.
Oh my gosh.
Make out.
Oh my gosh, this is the funniest thing. I can't believe. Get your transfer orders and get the heck out of the military and get the heck out of MASH. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this exists. Oh God. Hang on, I'm going to see if I can find pictures of the play pieces a little bit better. I want to know MASH board game.
Well, you're working on that. Let me also bring up that there was a trivia game.
See, well, that's
not
when?
strange.
That was like what, 1990 something, I imagine.
84.
Really? That's surprising. That's early for that kind of. I personally hate those trivia games, but that's a discussion for another time. That's a discussion with my therapist.
Multiple forms of that one.
Yeah. That doesn't bother me as much.
You have die-cast vehicles that they had. I'm trying. There's certain ones I'm saving for later on because I think I'm waiting to see your reaction on this. They, of course, in 82, somewhere 85, somewhere in the early 80s, the bubblegum cards.
Okay, that's not unusual. Star Trek had those. Star Wars had those. Everybody had those.
New from the hit
E.T.
TV
had
show.
those. I'm sorry, what was that?
It says right on the label, new from the hit TV show MASH.
Yeah.
Bubblegum cards. The action figures.
I love the action figures.
So 81, 82, it's 3 3/4 action figures, which had multiple styles of Klinger. One with him in his fatigues and one with him in a dress.
Can we stop for a minute and just talk about it? Because I love the fact. Now we should talk for people who don't know the show. The character of Corporal Maxwell Q Klinger. The conceit of the character was that Klinger was a draft dodger. He was trying to get out of the military by convincing everyone that he was crazy, and his chief way of doing this was to dress as a woman. And there were a couple other schemes that he had over the years too, but that was the major one. over the years it went by the wayside, and he became a more central character to the series, and not just a comic relief. Although Jamie Farr was brilliantly funny.
Oh,
playing
he was
character.
fantastic.
Oh my gosh, the trial of Henry Blake. There's a whole thing with him hang gliding over the compound in a pink robe and fuzzy bunny slippers, and find it and watch just that clip, because he is no dialogue, just physically what he's doing is so funny. There's another one where he gets a letter from his girlfriend back home she asking him to marry her, and they're going to get married basically by phone while he's in Korea, and he gets this news while he's dressed as Scarlett O'Hara in this big hat and this big frock and this whole thing. And then the next scene, you have Major Burns and Major Houlihan are having some discussion or some argument or whatever, and in the background is Klinger running through in this giant Scarlett O'Hara, hooping and hollering and cheering and laughing, and it's hysterical. He just upstages the whole thing, and it's wonderful. So I just want to stop and admire the fact. And I promised you last time I was here I wouldn't do another play, but we talked about being woke television shows. You had an action figure of a man in a dress.
Yep.
I mean, how you'd never be able to do that today. You'd never be able to do that in this day and age. There would be an uproar.
And let me add to the point. No one had a problem with it.
Nobody!
Because everyone just, it's Klinger.
It's Klinger.
Well,
it's not even that Klinger himself was transsexual or whatever. He was doing it as a gag to get. It was his way of getting out of the military, because at the time that's what we can't have those. We can't have those in the military. Yeah, but again, you can sort of address that in a way that you're not addressing that. So it's fantastic. There is an action figure. I'm now torn. If I'm gonna go on eBay and try to find that one piece, do I want the awful board game, or do I want the Klinger action figure? I just love the fact that there is a Klinger action figure in a dress. And I knew that I remember the action figures. I remember those coming out, and I remember thinking at the time, well, that's a little weird. That's not a TV show that I would make. It wasn't.
My friends had the Klinger and the fatigues, and I remember, I didn't know they had MASH action figures. Okay. I didn't think that was like
I thought that was kind of a weird thing, or a weird TV show to turn into action figures, especially when those came out like really at the end of it. As MASH was not the height of its popularity, but really as it was kind of on the way out. They had whatever it was, these 6 or 7 characters as action figures.
TriStar action figures collectible, including Klinger in army gear and Klinger in a pink dress, Potter, BJ, Hawkeye,
Hot Lips, and Winchester.
Father Mulcahy, and Hot Lips and Winchester.
And then now I went looking for this. I couldn't remember. I thought there was another figure. Wasn't there just one that was like a regular sort of? I thought there was like a blonde Hawkeye. It was the Hawkeye action figure, but it was painted blonde.
Yes.
And he was supposed to be. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not imagining. I just couldn't find it this afternoon when I went looking. But there was one that was just supposed to be like a generic military guy.
Yeah, because I did find that
Hawkeye
one
action figure painted blonde.
when I was doing my research. That's the first one I actually came upon, that someone putting that on eBay. Then of course there was the military base that went along with detailed playset, including just about every nook and cranny of the 477. Colonel Potter has his headquarters. Little plastic surgeons could prepare and pre-op ward with 10 patients in the hospital. Officer's mess. That's
And
these
not
action
the-
figures.
not
And
the-
the Jeep.
Can I just say one thing here? And I don't want to take away from MASH, because we've established that you and I have a great love for this show, and why we have such a great love for this show. But something needs I think we need to address the fact that the point of the show was I mean, literally, like, the whole main theme of the show was the fact that war and the military are so easily romanticized, and they wanted to sort of yank the rug out from under that. Was kind of the whole point of the books, the whole point of the movie, the whole point of the TV show was to take the Mickey out of military and the war.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, just at the tail end of the series, you're now doing action figures and romanticizing military and the war and military hospitals. And I think you kind of miss the point when you start, making some of the, maybe the Draft Dodger board game. But, it's literally like it's a race to get your wounded to the helicopter. And, you too can set up your pre-op, your operation table. I think you kind of somebody at Fox missed the point of the show.
I think it's a memo.
Off on these things.
Well, I mean, it goes along with the Bachman HO scale train set.
What now?
The train set.
No. Please tell me this is just a fever dream from my vacation.
No, because I've actually seen one of these in person.
You have
1983.
not. No, please tell me this is a fever dream. I'm going to wake up tomorrow still in my cabin in Vermont. Not my cabin, but still in a cabin in Vermont. This cannot be real.
Features a 45 by 36 oval track, 89 pieces, including 5 train cars, a plastic jeep, plastic helicopter, a water tower, 10 cardboard buildings, 48 plastic figures, and paper to be used as mountain backdrops. This is according to Toy Soldier HQ. Figures were not special army people, but regular Bachman figures that made up 24 men, women, and children, both white and green. And then there's also just separate train cars that could be that were sold individually. One of these sets sold on eBay a few weeks ago
for $296.01.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I don't believe these things exist.
Then there was also the
Now it says 89-piece electric train set with realistic mesh compound platform. Did it actually come with the
yeah,
plastic
it was
helicopter?
a big
Okay, plastic
set.
helicopter, a water tower, 10 cardboard buildings. Oh my gosh. I love the little cardboard buildings. Those are so cute.
It looks great.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, if I set that up, it would look like trash because those are professional model people who set that up. But oh my gosh!
You got also the scale model kits. That
Okay.
were detailed right down to including Radar holding his teddy bear. Radar.
Yeah, that was the swamp set, right?
Yeah, there's the swamp set.
Yeah.
Let's see what else there. Helicopter set. I think there was a couple of those. There was the MASH bed sheets. I'm surprised you don't have a pair.
I don't, but I will. I'm going on eBay as soon as this show is over. MASH bed sheets.
Even though they drank primarily vodka, but what would be a war, especially since there was a bar in the show, without the MASH beer?
Well, when was now? Wait a second. When is this MASH beer out, or when?
I couldn't find a date, but from the images, it is. I mean, this has been around so it's trademark 20th Century Fox Film Company. So this was out around that time.
The truth is, hang on. Well, MASH had its own beer in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm finding an article now. Turned up in beer aisles, branded 477 mash brew, premium quality, of course. I'll be danged. Because again, if you had said like, "Oh, this was a couple of years ago," it was because you got like Monty Python beer and Office beer. And,
Oh yeah, you got.
I mean,
something more recently. Yeah,
Game of Thrones
this is
beer.
This is from back when the show was being produced.
Wow. So again, that's. I mean, I'm torn on whether, on one hand, I think like, wow, that's way ahead of its time, and at the same time, I think, wow, that's a really weird thing to. What do you?
I'm not done yet.
Oh God, there's more.
Well, we had the 3 1/4 action figures. You had to have something a little bit bigger. They came out with, apparently Woolworths made 2 9-inch dolls, one of Hawkeye and one of Hot Lips, that had an action button on the back. That Hawkeye would swing a golf club, and yeah. He is dressed in a white medical garb, and then there's the one of Hot Lips where she swings like a medical bag.
Oh, this is.
But
Please
the
tell
weird
me this
part
is a
is-
fever dream.
The copyright date on these packages is
No.
1969.
Wait, what?
A whole year before the movie comes out, and if you look at the figures, they're based on the TV show.
No, that's not possible.
I could send you the images.
Send me the. That doesn't make any sense. How is that possible?
So yeah, I can't figure that one out. No one can figure that out. But
That doesn't make any sense.
and that's not the most bizarre thing I found.
You gotta stop saying that because you're making me nervous. I'm gonna leave this Skype call now because you're scaring me. I'm trying. I can't get a good picture of the.
So if you had, like I said, you had the beer. They came out with, and let's see, did I find a year on this one? No, I don't have an exact year on this one either because this is before you actually put copyright dates on things. The Hawkeye distilling bottle. It was the 4077 mash vodka with complete dispensing system. Vodka not included. It basically looked like an IV drip.
Hang on, I'm still on the Woolworths doll.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy the 1916.
The dates, no, but I've seen from a couple sources that have quoted that it's 1969 on the
Yeah,
packaging.
I think that's just a moron who doesn't know what they're. I haven't. If you show me the 1969 on the packaging, maybe I'll believe you. But
Well, that's what I'm saying. I got that off of 2 different websites.
yeah, I think that's just poor reporting because there's no way those dolls came out in 1969.
No, there isn't.
Those are also extraordinarily horrifying to look at. Those are really
I would
Really
believe like
terrifying.
77, 76, somewhere around
No,
that.
that's a very young picture of Loretta Swit on there.
That's what I'm saying. Probably, definitely the earlier seasons.
Yeah, 74, 75 maybe.
And they sold for $2 and change. But as far as finding an actual date on the packaging, I don't have an image that shows the actual date. Oh, wait, no, wait. If you zoom in, yep, there it is. On the Hot Lips one, zoom in on her right. So underneath the M, there's another word in yellow.
Yeah.
Zoom in real close. It's by It looks like a spire or something like that. 1969. It's right
Really?
above the picture of Alan Alda.
I'm not sure how that's possible, but okay. So
So-
I'm sorry. We've got an IV bottle we're talking
You got
about.
an IV bottle. There.
Oh, there we go. Mashed vodka. Oh, that's interesting.
It's actually kind of ingenious. It's just, you have a
And what
picture
year
of-
is this? Is this now?
This one I can't find a year on.
A vodka bottle printed with the MASH 477th liquor logo that dispenses the alcohol through a simulated intravenous setup. No, you do not get.
We could have used one of these back in our babies' days.
Babies are us, you mean?
Yep.
Not when we were babies. I probably could have used one of these when I was a baby. I could use one of these, or when our kids were babies.
Yeah, definitely could have used it then.
Heck, kids are grown now, and I could still use one of these.
So let's see here. What have we talked about? We talked about the cards. We talked about the three-quarter action figures, the military base playset, the vodka dispensary. Talked about die-cast vehicles, mostly Willys Jeeps, the 9-inch figures, the trivia game, the 2 board games, the bed sheets, the train set, the beer, and finally,
There's a finally?
there's a finally.
Oh, no, you can't do this to me.
1983,
Oh, no.
MASH, the video game,
No!
for the Atari 2600.
You are making this up.
Can you see this now?
No. Oh my god, with the 20th Century Fox logo and everything.
Right on it. Yep.
Holy Moses.
I'm going to have to actually
Oh.
send this one to you.
MASH. Atari game. Oh. I want. Oh my gosh. An okay. I thought it was an okay game for the Atari 2600. An okay game. Not. I've found. Hang on. There's footage. If you go on YouTube, there's footage of this game being played.
Oh, really?
Ladies-
I didn't go that far. I did a lot
Oh,
of
ladies
research.
and gentlemen, I don't know how well this is gonna. Hang on. Oh, hang on. The following video contains profanity. Hang on, I don't want profanity. Hang on. There's a minute 21. There's one here that's a minute 20. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's no sound on this. Oh, there we go. Oh my gosh. Wait, why are there Space Invaders, guys? Why are we
Basically,
shooting
it looks
Space
like Space
Invaders?
Invaders.
There's a helicopter. There's a tank shooting the helicopter. I would think the helicopter would be the good guys transporting the. There's a MASH unit. There's a. Okay, wait. Okay, I see. I think this is a 2-player game, and I think you play as the helicopters. You're picking up wounded and delivering them to the MASH unit while the tank shoots at you, I think.
That's what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you pick up. Okay. So the Space Invaders are actually wounded.
And then there's the operation part.
Wait, there's an operation part?
Yeah, there's a.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, this is so wrong. Oh my gosh.
You got this
I'm
weird
not-
blobby person with a maze in them, and you have.
I'm not watching this.
You have kind of like forceps to go in and try and remove
Oh my gosh.
something through
This
a maze.
So wrong.
Yeah.
Oh.
Remove it without hitting the ends.
Oh, I mean, it's basically for people to just to make this. It's a video game operation, and you're playing
Yes.
operation. But oh my gosh, I can't believe I've watched that. I can't unsee that. That's horribly tacky. Oh my God. I must own it. I must have one. This is so...
I told you I found a lot of bizarre things for
Please tell me that's the end of this list, because I can't...
That's the end of my list.
Oh, thank God, because I'm losing the will to live. What have you done to me?
So people thought, they market things, TV shows now a lot.
Oh my God, this is
1970s, early 1980s.
I'm still watching the MASH Operation game. This is awful. This is so terrible. I can't. There were puzzles too. Milton Bradley did puzzles. Actually, the puzzles, I saw some of the puzzles. They're really kind of cute. They're little 300 pieces, pictures of the,
Yeah.
Just promotional images of the various characters. I know there was a BJ one. There's another one with the entire cast. I'm sure there's a Hawkeye one.
And there's tons of posters, pictures, and
sure,
books. A lot of the more books. There's a lot of the more standard things. Magazines.
Alan Alda's wife, she published a book of her and I think Alan's photography from the set of MASH. Them running around taking pictures of everything. There was
you could still visit the filming location.
Yeah,
it's actually a bit of a hike.
That's the famous Fox lot that was used for, or CBS. I can't remember who owned that lot, but that was used. For, everybody used, like Star Trek used that. Star Trek used that a lot. That was
some of the same locations.
Every desert planet on Star Trek was that same lot, and then MASH used that lot. And actually, we'll talk about in the finale. There's this in the final episode, the TV movie Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. There's this sort of weird plot that crops up out of nowhere of them having to bug out because there's a forest fire coming towards them, and that was actually real life. There was a forest fire coming towards them, and they were told you can't film up there, so they just worked it into the script. They filmed a scene where they like, all right, everybody bug out, and they pack up, and that was it. The MASH crew packed up everything that was theirs, and they got out of the way until this forest fire went through, and then when it was safe to go back, they went back and they set up the MASH. That was just, it was part of life, and so they just worked it into the finale.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, it's a moment that just sort of pops up out of nowhere, and you're like, well, this doesn't have to do with anything, and yet it was a real thing.
I think there's a sign there now that tells you about where different things were located. There's a burnt, there's an old rusted out medical ambulance Jeep.
Yeah, one of the Jeeps is still there.
And then I think the sign pointing to Tokyo, Chicago.
No, I thought the sign isn't the sign in the Smithsonian?
There might be another one there too.
Okay.
Maybe. Or just
I think almost everything from the series went to the Smithsonian, although I've heard different things about Radar's teddy bear. I've heard some people that say that Radar's teddy bear was in the Smithsonian, and some people have said that no, it's not.
That Gary kept it.
I don't think Gary kept it. No, Gary doesn't have it. I heard an interview with him a few years ago, and he's like, no, I don't have it. I don't know where it is. But he doesn't. But we should have. I know a bunch of Klinger's dresses are in the Smithsonian, and actually, some of Klinger's dresses are actually. It's funny because very often they would pilfer from just the MASH or from the 20th Century Fox wardrobe, and so a lot of the times he's coming in and he's going, oh, this is a reproduction of the dress that so and so wore in such and such a movie, and it's like, no, that's actually the dress that so and so wore in such and such a movie. This is the dress that Betty Davis wore in whatever movie, and it's like, no, that actually was the dress that Betty Davis.
That's the real dress
in whatever movie. The Scarlett O'Hara dress is a reproduction, and I think at one point he's dressed as Judy Garland in Wizard of Oz. That's a reproduction. Yeah. And then there's a famous story, and I've heard a couple different variations on but he wore some actress's dress in an episode of the show, and then like a week later he was doing an episode of Love Boat with this actress, and she saw him and walked up to him. I've heard it every time I hear the story told, it's a different actress. He always changes what actress it is, but whatever actress it was walked up to him and said, "I saw you last night wearing my dress, and you looked better in it than I did."
Oh, brilliant.
But yeah,
Again,
I believe most of the set went to the Smithsonian, was my understanding, except for Klinger's dog tags, because those actually belonged to those. Jamie Farr served in Korea, and those are his actual. He wore his actual dog tags. And I think Alan Alda said he kept Hawkeye's boots, but I might be wrong about that too.
Yeah, I knew about the dog tags.
Yeah.
And he keeps on talking about being Lebanese, and like you said, bringing in part of their own personal life into the character. The character they said was Lebanese. He actually is Lebanese as well. So it's brilliant show.
Really, really horrible merchandising.
Hey,
oh my god.
70s and early 80s. What do you?
Folks, I want to apologize to all of you, because I brought this on myself. I never should have sent him that picture. I'd like to go back and redo my whole vacation right now for a number of reasons, but predominantly so I can stop myself from sending Matt this picture, because that's what he called me and said we should talk about MASH. Disney owns it, so they bought Fox, so they own MASH, and we should talk about it. And I said, sure. And I had no idea that it was, and I thought I would just go on the program and I would talk about my love for one of my favorite TV shows with one of my best friends. I had no idea the horror that was about to be. I'm still watching the video of the operation on the MASH video game. This is so wrong. This is so wrong. Oh. I'd tell Matt to edit out, just go and edit out all the bad parts of this episode, but there are no good parts. You'd be left with an introduction and my apology. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Can we, the pain of what you've done to me tonight. I don't know how to thank you, but I will get you back for this.
You get me back next week when we talk about She-Hulk.
Oh, this is so painful. Should we? Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's end on a bright note, and let's tell. I think if we're talking about MASH, we need to tell this story.
Yes.
Okay, because I think what? You stopped me from telling stories. Okay, go ahead.
No. I wanted, before we do that.
Okay.
I think we should give our rating for the show, because we're kind of reviewing the show, so we might as well.
No, I think no. I don't think we can rate the show, because the show is an A+. We're both going to give it an A+. No, let's go. We need to rate this merchandise. We're rating something. Go for it. Just go right down the list real quick. We've already bored people. Let's give them something. Let's give these poor people something. Give us, what do we start with? How do you start? This is such a great list.
The vodka bottle.
The vodka bottle? I'll give the vodka bottle. I like the vodka bottle. I give that maybe, what do you think, an A-?
Yeah, I think that was actually kind of genius.
This is how bad I feel. I will actually rate things, because you asked me, you're like, what do you rate this? And I'm like, I don't know, 2 dead stormtrooper heads with no idea what that is. What do you rate this? I don't know. This is Hulk issue number 175. I don't know how to rate, but I will rate these, because this is important to me. I give the vodka bottle like an A-. That's actually like a clever. That really is like a little, like, again, this is sort of ahead of its time. This is like early cosplay. Like, you own.
Someone put some thought into that.
Yeah, that's a really clever little thing. I can't even think of what I could compare that to. I mean, that's like owning the Game of Thrones throne, or owning, I don't know, what's popular on television. I don't watch television anymore.
You're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah, or owning Walter White's meth lab. I don't know. It's like I don't.
Again, if you're not familiar with the show,
like
Hawkeye and his friend would have a they built their own gin
distillery,
and so they would constantly be pouring themselves a drink,
and they used an IV from. I mean, it's all made up of parts that are swiped from the hospital, from the army hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing, there's an IV thing there. So this is the same thing. And I think it's like, I got it. It's like having a Star Trek phaser or like a lightsaber. It's just that whole part of the TV show that you can own this. I like it. I'll give the vodka IV bottle. I'll give that like an A-. That's great. I love that. In fact, I'll even jump that to an A. I just love that.
How about the train set?
The train set, the picture of it is really, really cute. I mean, that looks the hospital. You got the hospital there, the little paper hospitals, and I don't know what it looks like in person. Like I said, I think if I put it together, it would look like garbage. I'm gonna give the picture of the train set an A. The train set, I don't know. I think train. I'll give the train like a solid B or a B+, because I think that's one of those things that model trains, you do what you can to suck people in, or whatever you can do to bring people into the hobby or into the craft. And if that gets people into the hobby or the craft, then it's done its job. I don't think it necessarily, romanticizes war or the military. It is just a little model of the base. And I like the pictures of the little buildings. So I'll give that like a solid B, maybe a B+. What else you got for me?
All right, let's do the 3 3/4 action figures with the base set.
Well, A+ for the Klinger in a dress action figure. I mean, Klinger on its own gets an A+. And actually, I'll give. See, it's tough because I don't think it's a really toyetic show. It's not something that I would think to make toys of. And yet at the same time, if you look at the quality of the things, they're actually, well, I see a lot of broken ones on eBay. So I don't think it's a company that didn't produce them particularly well, but they were more articulated than the Star Wars figures of the time. So that's something, they're almost more like G.I. Joes.
They're right along the G.I. Joe line.
I think that's kind of what they were going for, was like could be used with G.I. Joe. But they're a little terrifying to me too. So I give Klinger an A+. I give the others more of like a B- or like a C. I'm thinking more of a C. What else we got?
And then we got the 9-inch dolls.
Those are a D. We're going right there. We've gone A, B, C, D. I think we're getting into the F territory here.
Well, next I was going to go with the board games.
The board games are also a D for Draft Dodger. I think one is literally about how to get out of the army, and the other one is literally, I think, sort of romanticizing, this thing that shouldn't. It's romanticizing or get the wounded to the. No, I can't get behind that. That's a D. That's it. And both the boards on both of them just look really, really goofy.
Like, okay, we need to come up with an idea. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of those Milton Bradley games from like the 70s and 80s, and they're pretty junky. I've got a Tailspin one, and I've got the Muppet Show one, and both of them they're pretty junky games. I mean, Milton Bradley. Here's the thing: Milton Bradley would take any license they could get and just slap a board game on it without any kind of thought. And it really is roll the die, go around the board, get this piece, get that piece, get this piece. Now get this piece here, and they're. Each one is just as mindless and dull as the next. There is no fun in any of these games. I think just about any Milton Bradley board game I would give a D to. But this one in particular is so, and then whatever the other one is, like I said, Draft Dodger, the board game, which I get it if you're trying to make if you're trying to make a commentary on the Vietnam War using the Korean War as a framework, I suppose, but I don't think I can get behind either of the board games. Those are terrifying. Don't say it. Please don't make me rate the next one. Please don't make me say bed sheets. Please say bed sheets.
I was going to say mash the beer.
I'm not a beer drinker, so I don't know. And again, it's, nowadays every IP has an IP. So I guess in that regard, it's ahead of its time. I don't drink beer, and I don't know what the mash beer tasted like. So I'm not gonna rate the mash beer. Please say bed sheets next. Please say bed sheets and don't say the other thing.
I was gonna say it's gonna taste like swamp water. I don't know. All right, bed sheets.
I like the bed sheets. The bed sheets are fun. I don't know if I'd necessarily sleep in them. That's weird. I didn't even look. Did it say what size the bed sheets are? I imagine they're twin sheets.
I couldn't find a size. I just saw an image of the print.
Hang on. Yeah, I saw the print was kind of. I mean, I guess if you're really, really a huge fan of.
I have Grogu bed sheets, so I can't say anything.
I can't even find them now. No, now I see all. Okay, here we go. Mash. Fan reproduces mash set in backyard. That's cool. Vintage. It doesn't say what size these are. I'm kind of curious now. But it's a cute little pattern. I'd give that maybe a B+.
Okay. I have to do it.
No, don't. Please don't.
I have to.
Can't. No.
We did everything else.
Don't make me.
We did everything else.
No, we can't. Don't make me. It's a twin bed sheet.
Okay.
So anyway, let's tell the story of why I call
tell
it
the story.
radar.
You tell the story.
No, let's do this. Let's get it over with.
Tell the story.
That's such an F. You don't have to say it. I'm just gonna say it. It's an F. It's such a fail on so many levels. I can't even. I can't even wrap my brain around the MASH video game, Atari game. That's so awful. That is the most horrible thing I've ever seen. Okay, so now that F doesn't even cover it.
I think it's beyond that.
Yeah, it's beyond anything that I can.
It's unreadable.
Fathom. Oh, so as people who probably listened, let's focus on something more positive, please. So as I'm sure as a lot of people who listen to the show regular may or may not be aware of, I occasionally slip up. And I don't call Matt. And people who obviously know the two of us know this. And even people who don't even know you personally and just sort of hear me talk about you know this, that I have a nickname for Matt, which is I call you Radar. And I've been doing this now for 18 years. You've been Radar to me. And it's hard for me to come on this show and call you Matt. It's really hard. And I'm like, no, I'll be good because if I call him Radar, nobody's gonna know who I'm talking about. It's you, obviously.
Especially in the early days when you were coming on the show.
Did I really do it that badly?
Then it was a little more. Yeah.
I try so hard. I think the word if my daughter is on it gets really, really hard. Because I'm in that more like relaxed, it's you, me, and her, and I'm just kind of in it. I'm hanging out with my two best friends, whatever. It's Emily and Radar, and I call you so there's a whole story here, which is that when we first met, obviously he's Matt, I'm Matt. We worked together at a Babies R Us store, which Radar alluded to earlier. See, now I don't even know what to call you. But so we worked together, and we worked very closely together. Almost, I think, just about from the word go. We were completing each other's sentences. This is going to sound creepy saying this, but aside from my wife, I don't think I've ever taken to another human being, just meshed with another human being as quickly as you and I just fell right in sync with each other, right in step with each other, every step of the way. You and I are almost always on the same mindset in one way or another. I can't think of any time in the last 18 years where we've never had a fight. We've never been mad at each other. It's always been I think once in 18 years I got mad at you for something and almost immediately forgave you. And then I remember, like, it was like another 2 or 3 years, like, oh yeah, I got mad at Radar for something, but I literally can't remember what it was, and it took me days to go, that's what I was mad at him for. And it took me days to remember that, which is strange for my memory. So we've just always had this sort of, it was an instant friendship. And so we were working together at This Babies Are Us. And again, we were fairly interchangeable, to be honest. And so they would call us to the front. They would to ring a register or go get carts or do whatever or get something for a customer. And for the most part, we were interchangeable. Every once in a while, they would need a specific one of us. And they'd call him and they'd get me, or they'd call me or they'd get him, or they'd call and they'd get both of us, or they'd call and they'd get neither of us, which also happened. Let the other Matt get it. They don't. And so this went on, and we kept saying there was like, well, one of us needs I think somebody tried. Well, one of you will be Matt and one of you will be Matthew, but they couldn't decide. They kept changing which one of us was Matt and which one of us was Matthew.
They could never remember which one was which.
They could never decide. And we made things worse by going, well, do either of you have a preference? They're like, yeah, both of us prefer being called Matthew, actually. We'll go by Matt and deal with it, but for the most part, we both prefer being called Matthew.
Yep.
Makes things, throw that out the window. And finally, again, one of the things that we established fairly early on with each other was this shared love of old sitcoms, almost specifically MASH. We share a love for. And so one night I had been in the store. I was working like an 8-hour shift. Matt comes in just before he would come in, and I'd go on my lunch break or whatever it was, my 15-minute break, whatever break I was getting. And he comes in, and there were a bunch of things I needed to show him because I was the department supervisor at the time. And I said, there's a new stroller that came in that I need to show you. And he goes, oh, I built the new stroller yesterday. And I went, all right. I said, well, there's a new car seat that came in over there, and we need signs for it. And he goes, oh yeah, I printed the signs last night before leaving. And then I said, okay, there's some shelf tags that we missed. We gotta when I come back from my break, I'll get a gun and I'll get the scan gun. I'll show you how to make the shelf tags. And he goes, oh, I was alone over the weekend and I got bored. So I got myself a gun and a printer and I taught myself to make the shelf tag. All these projects I kept trying to give Matt, he was already a half step ahead of me. And in the TV show MASH, if any of you listening to this watch the show, or for those of you who don't know the show, there was this character, Radar O'Reilly. He was the company clerk. He worked closely under their commanding officer. And the joke with Radar was that Radar was they alluded to the fact that Radar was perhaps a little bit psychic. He knew when choppers were coming in before he was the first one to know when the choppers were coming in. He was always Colonel Blake or Colonel Potter later on would call Radar into the office and be Blake specifically would call Radar into the office and be giving Radar all of these things to do. And Radar would be responding to the fact that he had already somehow done them while Blake was giving him these instructions. Or Blake would have a question for him And while Blake was asking the question, Radar would be answering it for him. Radar was always kind of a half step ahead of Blake. So here we are, 2005, I guess, working in this Babies R Us store. I'm trying to give Matt all of these things. You got to do this, and we got to do this, and this has to get done. And he's going, yeah, I already built that stroller. I already printed the signs for that car seat. I taught myself to do the shelf tags. And I said, having the friendship that we had, I said, thanks, Radar. Now tell Captains Pierce and McIntyre to meet me in my office. And he said, without missing a beat, said, Captain Pierce and McIntyre are already in your liquor cabinet. And I laughed, and I went up to our store manager, who loved giving people nicknames. And I said, I think we should call Matt Radar. And our store manager looked at me like I had just given him the best Christmas present ever. I mean, he was just giddy with excitement. And from that night on, Matt, to all of us in the store, and specifically to me, was Radar. And I've never thought of you as, it's hard for me to think of you as anything else. So that's why, I guess this is what, for those of you who've suffered through this conversation tonight, if I can give you anything, this has been a long, very long-winded, suffering way to tell you all, when I'm on the show and when I screw up on the show and I refer to Matt as Radar, this is why I do it. That is why I do it. It's because of this love for our shared love for the show, MASH. And I think that's, please, let's end there and never discuss the Atari game ever again, because I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to go to bed now and have nightmares about that. That's awful that this exists. Oh,
the fact that you want to buy one. And on that bombshell.
I really don't. I don't think I could. Oh. Do you know Gary Berghoff is actually, he's a Connecticut, he lives up here not far from me, I think. He's a Connecticut boy.
No wonder he's such a good guy.
Yeah. The years ago when I was in college, they actually did a really lovely, Gary Berghoff plays Radar on television, for people who don't know what I'm talking about. He's got a fascinating, were you the one who told me this, that he was in a band with Linda Carter?
I might have.
I'm trying to remember if that nugget of knowledge came from you. Because he was a drummer, and he actually did some drumming on the show.
He did that on the show, and he also has the deformity to his left hand.
His left hand. So he would always have a clipboard in his left hand to try and hide. But he's also got he's a painter. He's a brilliant painter. He paints nature pictures and then sells them to raise money for the ASPCA, I think it is. And then he's also got he owns the patent on several fishing lures, apparently. So he's a fascinating character. He's a fascinating individual, Gary Berghoff. And then they did a thing to tie into the characters that he always knew when the choppers were coming, he was always ahead of things. Years ago, when I was a student up here in Connecticut in college, one of the local TV stations had upgraded it was a Doppler radar, and they did a whole they dragged Gary Berghoff in, and they did a whole series of really, really funny commercials where you'd see Gary Berghoff lying in bed, and he'd suddenly jump up out of bed, and he'd racing around the bedroom. There's snowstorm coming, snowstorm coming, snowstorm, and it'd be like, the tagline would be like, not everyone has a built-in radar, so turn into whatever news, and we've got a new Doppler radar that will give you. And then there's another one where he's talking to the local weatherman up here, and he's giving weather predictions for the afternoon, and the weatherman is actually giving predictions for 2 or 3 days out, and is ahead of Radar. And Radar, well, we're supposed to get some rain this afternoon. And he goes, that'll clear up by morning, and we'll have some sunshine coming in and some possible fog early tomorrow morning. Oh, well, I think the temperatures are supposed to get up tomorrow. Yeah, but then the cold front is moving in on Wednesday, and that's going to bring in some possible snow. And Gary every time the weatherman opens his mouth, Gary Berghoff kind of, oh, yeah. And it's this almost sort of one-upsmanship. He can't keep up with the. And again, the idea is that not everybody has
the
Some
building. Right?
people's radars are better than others. Turn into such and such news. Turn into Channel 3 news for and get the weather from our Doppler radar. So, I think that's where we'll end the show.
Yeah, I think that's we'll end it.
Because I'm afraid we're going to talk about the Atari game again, and I can't. I can't take that kind of thing.
Stop bringing it up.
I can't.
Don't mention the war. I think I mentioned it once, but I got away with it.
Don't mention the Korean War. I'm gonna post that video. I don't believe this exists.
Post it to the Facebook group.
Oh yes. Oh no. Let's end the show, please. End the show.
Yeah.
Say something. Say goodnight.
Thank
Grace.
you again.
Thank you so much for having me on. I will get you back for this.
Oh, absolutely. And I look forward to it.
Oh, there's a punishment here to be had. And thank you all for joining us and helping me in my suffering and my misery. And I hope, if nothing else, if you got nothing else out of this, maybe you'll find an episode of MASH on MeTV. I think it's on MeTV.
MeTV
Or find
has
the
it.
DVDs.
I
Probably find the
think
DVDs.
Hulu?
What?
I think it's on Hulu as well.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I want to say. Oh, my IMDb reset. I want to say it's on Hulu as well. Let me just confirm that before.
Probably borrow the DVDs out of your local library or find them on Amazon.
The movie is on HBO Max.
Okay.
But no, you just have to watch it on MeTV and many other streaming services or
But
TVs.
It's a fantastic, very powerful.
It's all over the place. And like you said, libraries, DVDs, Blu-rays are all out there.
Yeah. I don't think it's on tour.
Definitely sit down and watch it.
Yeah, definitely find it and watch it and enjoy it. And then stay away from the video game at all costs. But please go out and buy MASH beer and maybe a vodka distillery and if you buy the Twin Sheets, please call us and we'll review and come on and do a review of MASH Twin Sheets with us.
Yes.
Because I really want to know how comfy those are. All
right. And on that bombshell.
And that's where we'll end this show.
Thank you again, Matt, for the stroll down memory lane talking about MASH, the movies, the merchandise, and the TV shows. Have you watched MASH? Are you a fan of MASH like we are? Let us know, join the conversation, or have we maybe tweaked your interest in checking out what MASH, the show MASH, and giving it a try? Let us know. Either way, join the conversation on our main Facebook page, facebook.com. If you look up WD Magiccast, you will find it there. You can also find our group, facebook.com/group/ it's still Disney Marvel's podcast there. On Instagram, on TikTok, and on Twitter, we're all at WD Magiccast. You can leave a voice message through the Anchor app or Anchor.fm website, or record us a message electronically and email it to email@wdmagiccast.com, and you will be heard on the show as well. You can also email us any questions or suggestions you may have to that address as well. Links to all of these are in the show notes. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have these days, and the fact that we get to spend these times together really does mean a lot to me, to the whole crew over here at WD Magiccast. I cannot thank you enough, but I could please ask you, share out the episodes on social network, let people know about them, and if you really want to help us out, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, leave us a rating and review. We have all 5 stars at the moment on both of them. Truly blessed, really, it means a lot, but keep them coming. We need more. And the more reviews that we get, particularly the 5-star ones, not that I'm trying to influence you, but particularly the 5-star ones, helps the show, where the Apple Podcasts and Spotify's of the world will advertise and tell people about the show for us. So this is a good thing. Gotta keep that going. So the more we get, the more people will join the family. Walt believed in a big Disney family, and so do I. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the show. This way you always know when a new episode is posted. And while you're at it, consider becoming a premium subscriber. Really help the show out, especially as we're in this point of growth. With a lot of new things coming. I haven't told you everything that is coming to WD MagicCast. There is still more. Yes, there is more. And we need your help to help get this going. You can do this over on anchor.fm/WDMagicCast/support, or you can find our Patreon page. Also, check out our merchandise shop. Get yourself some cool podcast stuff there to help support the show. Links to all these aren't in the show notes, because remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever you're facing out there, whatever hard times, whatever darkness seems to be surrounding you, don't give in. You are a beacon of light. You are unique. You are special. You are the person that you are meant to be. Never forget that. The world is a better place because you are there. And there's no one else that can replace you. There's no one else like you. You are an individual. You are unique. You are exactly who you're meant to be. If you need help, never be afraid to ask for help. Help will be given to those who ask for it. Be your own hero. Never give up. Never give in. And now I'd like to end this show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. There's a big, exciting period ahead of us, and I say it's television. Television is an open sesame to many things. I don't have to worry about going out and selling to the theater man. I mean, I go right to the audience. I have a chance by getting there 26 times every year. I have a chance to have a pretty good batting average and not have to get in a rut. Again, that's Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.